Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about a new biopic film called The Smashing Machine. This is an A24 production that's directed by Benny Safdie, who's also a movie actor. He's been in Oppenheimer and Licorice Pizza and a bunch of other stuff. And so basically, The Smashing Machine is a film that is the story of Mark Kerr's life. He was a mixed martial arts fighter who's still around today, apparently, and he retired from mixed martial arts around 2009. At least that's according to what the film said. But we follow Mark Kerr's life roughly between the years of 1997 through 2000. This is definitely a very like high and low kind of experience for him, depending on what event that you're depicting, and what's going on in his life at the time. And so over the course of this film, we follow kind of his MMA career, what he does for, I think, this company called Pride is what I think it was called. And they do a lot of international fights. They don't just do U.S. fights. They do fights in Japan and other places as well. And so we kind of follow the highs and the lows of Mark Kerr's life, his drug addiction, his struggles with his love interest at home, and some other struggles he has. How he has a close friend of his that also basically does exactly what he does. Also is involved in MMA fighting, but also kind of works as a coach and a personal friend for him as well. And so we do follow kind of the highs and lows of Mark Kerr's life. Things about his MMA career that were kind of stood out and were very unique and interesting, and also some things about his life that really kind of hurt him as a person, hurt him as far as moving forward, trying to figure out what the next stage of his life is going to be. And so we follow the overall 4 year gap of a very high and low point in Mark Kerr's life of the course of 4 years of him as an MMA fighter over the course of The Smashing Machine. But overall, guys, I really enjoyed this film quite a bit. It's a very interesting biopic film in the sense that they kind of use like a pseudo documentary style of filmmaking to film all the scenes in this movie. It really does feel like we're kind of this fly on the wall, kind of observing all the stuff that's going on in Mark Kerr's life. And it was just a very interesting experience of a film. I want to go over some positives and negatives as to why I overall recommend the film, why there's a lot of good things in it. But I also do want to go over some negatives as to why there is a couple things along the way that might prevent this from being like a Best Picture winner and things like that. But for my positives for this film, Dwayne Johnson gives an excellent performance here as Mark Kerr. He really does transform himself. He really, Dwayne Johnson was never really a bad actor, but he really does give a very dramatic pull to this role. You could definitely tell he took it very personally. He really does embody this Mark Kerr person. Even the way that kind of, I'm sure it's prosthetics and makeup as well, but even the way his hair was styled, how they styled his eyebrows, how he enters the ring, and kind of how he has, obviously the Dwayne Johnson build, but even the way they kind of covered up his tattoos in place of what the ones that Mark Kerr had instead, and even kind of the way he was tan, like the way that he got his tan felt different. Um, just a very transformative performance. If he does get an Oscar, I think it's very well deserved, or even an Oscar nomination for this performance. Don't know if he win because it'll be interesting to see kind of what the other nominations are before claiming Dwayne Johnson as the winner. But as far as transforming into this person, playing the role, having the dramatic pull to pull off the whole Mark Kerr performance, I think Dwayne did a very good job here. Probably my favorite performance of him. Not probably my favorite film of his, but my favorite performance from him. I thought it was a very, very good performance, an excellent transformation in playing this real life person as well. Emily Blunt plays a role in the film. She basically plays the love interest of Mark Kerr here. Very crazy performance. She definitely has to do a lot of stuff in this film that really requires her to really go full on crazy. You could definitely tell this person that Mark Kerr was dating had some mental health problems of her own. And so she really does reflect that in this person very well. She really is kind of the person that tugs Mark the wrong way at times and really kind of challenges Mark for both better or worse. When Mark is going through a bad drug addiction, obviously some of the things that she does and says does not help his condition whatsoever. But very, very good performance here. Once again, similar to Dwayne Johnson. If Emily Blunt does get a nomination for an Oscar for the film, I think it is well deserved. Don't know if she'll win or even get nominated, but if she does, I think all of it's well deserved. And it's a very, very good performance from her. Very much a transformational performance, too. And I was just very happy overall with her performance in the movie. And like I mentioned earlier, this film does have a very pseudo documentary style of filmmaking. I like how it really is kind of this fly on the wall. Let's film it like the way it really played out in real life. There isn't. It almost kind of feels like it's filmmaking without feeling like filmmaking. It really does feel like we're watching something play out the way it probably did in real life. And I think that it benefits the film. It makes it feel like it's not just another biopic film. It really does feel like we're watching a series of events that really does happen and really could possibly play out for somebody. And it really does feel like we're watching a piece of a puzzle of a life, a moment in a person's life. And I thought the pseudo documentary style of filmmaking really helped this film elevate the material to make it seem really unique and different. I also like how the film does make the point that a lot of these fighters are just cool to get a chance to fight each other. There's a lot of characters in the movie where they fight Mark Curbit and they also get a chance to kind of talk to him, in the locker room and, at a later time after the fight's done with. And they're just cool to fight each other. They're not really there to become enemies. They're not really there to, um, you know, bash each other's heads in or anything. They're really just there to fight, compete, see who wins the money prize, and they're just cool to get a chance to fight each other. They almost kind of compare injuries at some point. There's a lot of times where Mark is very interested in that, and he does it in a very playful way. He's trying to make sure that the person he's fighting that didn't have to go to the hospital, that they don't have to retire from MMA fighting at all or anything like that. So there really is kind of a lot of fun interactions in this movie where you could definitely tell a lot of these fighters are just cool getting a chance to be able to compete in the ring with each other. And it's kind of cool that we do get a sport where even though it's very competitive and you very much have to stay in shape and watch kind of where you get injured and stuff like that. At the end of the day, these guys are just cool getting a chance to fight each other, getting a chance to see exactly who would win against who, and who's a better option and better fighter to be able to get that chance to get the big money prize during the Grand Prix tournament. And like I briefly mentioned earlier too, I do like the whole fly on the wall observation that this film takes. It really does feel like they took about 4 years of time in Mark Kerr's life and really gave us a chance to kind of be the fly on the wall that observes everything that's going on, whether it's preparation for a fight, the fight itself, things going on at home, things going on with the girlfriend, things going on with his coach, things going on with other fighters. We really do kind of get this chance to kind of observe everything that's going on in his life. And I like how the writing kind of allows, I don't even know if it was improvised or anything like that, but I like how the writing in this film felt like it's people actually talking, the way I'm talking to you, the way you would probably talk back to me. It really does feel like it's not something that a writer wrote down for Dwayne Johnson to say in this one scene or for Emily Blunt to say in this one scene. It does feel like natural talking from one person to the other, and it really does feel like we're kind of watching a certain moment in time play out, and it doesn't feel like we're witnessing a screenplay coming to life. It really does feel like we're capturing a moment in time in a person's life. But for my negatives of The Smashing Machine, unfortunately, I think the film would have benefited from more flashbacks and more insights on Mark's past. It really doesn't use a lot of flashbacks here. There's like a brief flashback sequence near the end of the film, but it's not really. It's just kind of stuff we've seen earlier on in the movie. So I thought more flashbacks would have been helpful for this film, more insight on what exactly got Mark into MMA fighting, what was going on before kind of his big breakthrough fight, how him and his girlfriend met, why did they decide to move in together, what kind of made them at the time feel like they were meant for each other, and what kind of caused this downfall with their relationship. We just kind of jump right in. They're kind of already struggling as a couple, and the film never gives us any insight of what exactly was going on before that. If there was, a time in their life or a time in their relationship where things were working out. The film doesn't really give us that many kind of details on that kind of stuff. So I thought more flashbacks and more insights, specifically on Mark's past, would have benefited the film greatly. I also thought there was some disturbing content in the film that really is kind of difficult to watch. There really is a scene where a character's mental health is really not in a good place, and so how they depict that scene is very, very disturbing. We also do see a lot of disturbing scenes of Mark and his love interest having really violent um, interactions with each other that really goes in dark directions. So if you're really those people, if you're really kind of squeamish to that kind of stuff, I don't know if the Smashing Machine is going to be for you, because there is a lot of scenes where we do get to see a lot of dark times in Mark Kerr's life and a lot of dark interactions he had with his love interest behind closed doors. And so, if you're really sensitive to that kind of stuff, there is unfortunately quite a bit of that in this movie. The film also never makes it clear why Mark retired from MMA fighting. It just kind of says, at one point in time, he just kind of retired and that was it. He didn't really think about going back. He wasn't allowed to come back. This one injury caused this, or he just didn't want to do it anymore, or he had enough losses in his career where he wasn't allowed to do it anymore. So we're really not given a lot of insight. We're just kind of told that he does eventually retire, and we're really not given a sense as to why that happened. So I don't know if he relapsed from his drug addiction, and so there's a lot of questions you'll have by the time the credits roll as to why exactly did Mark leave MMA fighting, and did any kind of problems that we witnessed over the course of this film come back, and that was the reason why he had to leave. So there's a lot of questions like that you'll have by the time the credits roll. Then unfortunately the film never gets around to answering some of those questions. And also, this is one of those kind of movies where there is a lot of those typical sport drama tropes. The athlete gets, in a fight with his girlfriend. He loses the fight. He has to retrain himself, has to rediscover himself, has to get over an addiction, has to do this, has to do that. So if you've seen like Karate Kid or Friday Night Lights or Rudy or any of those kind of movies, unfortunately there is a lot of those tropes that are kind of carried over from those into this movie. So if you're looking for a sport drama that really kind of reinvents the wheel per se, unfortunately this film isn't it. But overall, I'm going to give The Smashing Machine an 8.5 out of 10. There's a lot of great things about it. Dwayne Johnson gives an excellent performance, so does Emily Blunt. The pseudo-documentary style of filmmaking was great here. The whole cool to get a chance to fight each other with the fighters aspect, really cool to watch. The whole fly-on-the-wall observation I thought was well handled in the story. But like I said, more flashbacks felt needed, more insights on Mark's past felt needed. There is some disturbing content that really isn't meant for the squeamish at all for this movie. Why Mark retired and kind of what caused him to retire and that journey to why he eventually did have to retire is really never explored very much. And like I said, there is some sport drama tropes here that really are just kind of in all these movies, and it really is kind of annoying that we have another film that had to go through some of these tropes. But overall, like I said, Smashing Machine gets an 8.5 out of 10 for me. I highly recommend seeing it. Even just for Dwayne Johnson's performance alone, I think it's worth your money to go see it. Highly recommend it. Very good movie. And once again, I felt like Dwayne Johnson really gave a great transformative performance that might even allow him to get an Oscar nomination or potentially even an Oscar win, if depending on what his competition is for this year.